even 15 minutes of meditation can reduce your need for sleep by a few hours. And even in that 15 minutes, you're actually genuinely only meditating for like a minute or two. After 40 is when you actually, I feel like women blossom. And also this thing about like, you know, oh, you don't look like you're 40. Like, please tell me, how are we supposed to look when we are 40? Come on. Every day, in every way, I get better and better. That's my affirmation. I just always wanted to write or suggest things that I've tried myself, not because something is a trend. As a journalist, you're not paid that much. As an influencer, the kind of money they make is insane. It was insane. We used to hear stories like, हम तो मतलब यहाँ पे बैठ करके एक story हम इतनी मेहनत कर रहे हैं, and they're just getting paid like for one post. One of the first movers who wrote about beauty and wellness together, instead of like just keeping skincare and makeup apart and then you have your wellness. I just like, you know, blended all of it. At the age of 36, my career restarted.
Before I start, I think I have to put a disclaimer here because it's the right thing to do. That you know that I'm very, very fond of you, and no, but you know you're actually somebody that I admire a lot, and not just for what you've achieved, but just for the way you are. I've from the beginning, I've just found you so open and warm and trusting, and I find that a difficult way to be in today's world.
Oh, thank you, Yasmin. I think that's my default mode, so I feel like that is easy for me to do. And so many people have broken my trust so many times. I just know that I'll be able to manage that. But to always have my guards up is something it's very difficult for me.
Yeah, but you were always like that?
I've always been like that. But one thing I have that because, you know, I'm open and I'm trusting and, you know, I have been deceived several times. And, you know, just the closest people, they deceive you, right? So one thing that I've become very good at is reading energies, and I think maybe my spiritual work is also, you know, my intuition is extremely strong. I know how to read people, and people who cannot be trusted, I have like a visceral reaction that sometimes I feel is an overreaction, but I've always proved right. Yeah. So my own, you know, I think my ability to trust has also sort of educated me in who to trust and who not to.
Yeah.
You know,
but that's something that must have developed over a period of time.
Oh yes, now, and also like, you know, I think it goes for all of us that we all have a very strong intuition. As women, we always have a strong intuition, but we never trust our intuitions, right? We always like try to find a way to explain it away. So I think now, after 45, I've learned how to trust my intuition, and if I feel something is right, it is right.
I have to ask you about so many things, but I'm going to start at the beginning. You know, you had a very nomadic, like, and structured childhood, I assume, since you were in army.
Yeah.
What is it called? Army brats, right?
Yes, army brats.
Army brats. So you've been all over the country before finding home in Delhi?
Oh yes, all over the country and all over the world also, because, you know, the guy who I was married to, you know, we were living the expat life in Southeast Asia, in London. So yeah, with my dad, with my ex-husband, you know, pretty much, traveled all over the place.
Did you choose to live in Delhi, or that because that's convenient because your parents were there?
You know, I got into College of Art in Delhi, you know, in front of Supreme Court. So that's how it started. And even before that, about 9 years we spent in Delhi from, I think, when I was in my 2nd to 10th, because my father is an infantryman. So we were in Delhi for about 9 years. A good
stretch of time.
Yeah, 6 years my parents were, you know, had this separation because my father was always either in field or in UN. So Delhi is a big chunk of my life. And, you know, then College of Art happened and, you know, most of my friends are
And
here.
where was school?
So school was Army Public School, and my +1 and +2 happened in DAV Public School, Amritsar.
Really?
Because, yeah, that's where Papa got posted in 11th and 12th. We were very disappointed, me and my brother. We were like, oh my God, we're so cool here, uncool going to Amritsar and to DAV. But those were the best years of my life. Those 2 years in Amritsar was so amazing.
So has the city shaped you, Delhi, in any way? College of Art must have been, that's a 4-year course, right?
Yeah, and you know, Yasmin, my first year of College of Art, so my mom didn't want to put me in a hostel or a paying guest or that sort of situation because she was like, oh, you'll make a boyfriend, which she was very right about. So
they usually are.
Yeah. So my nani, you know, I mean, my nanihal is in Palwal, you know, ahead of Faridabad and Ballabgarh and whatever in Haryana. I used to take an EMU from Palwal to Tilak Bridge.
Every
because
day.
every day I used to take in first year. Can you imagine? And you know, in winter it used to get dark because College of Art used to go until 5:30 in the evening. Sometimes the trains would get delayed, and you know, and the train used to be full till about like Faridabad,
and then it would get empty.
Then it would get empty. And I remember there used to be this one station called Asavdi just before Palwal. It used to be completely empty. It was just fields. There used to be no lights. And I remember, especially in winter, I used to carry this big shawl with me. I used to just cover myself up completely in that as a 17, 18-year-old girl. And yeah, pretty terrifying experiences.
I can imagine. And your parents were not in Delhi at that time?
So dad was posted in Sikandrabad. So mom would spend her time between Palwal and Sikandrabad. I think from her side, she was just trying to protect me. And, you know, I mean, in Delhi, that time used to be so unsafe. Even now, but well, you know, it's sort of improved. Then, you know, second year also, even when my parents, like, you know, we finally got accommodation in Delhi and my father was posted here and whatever. I used to, like, you know, you take a charter and you go and whatever. And usme bhi, you know, guys, they start following you and everything. So I did have like fair amount of those sort of experiences, you know.
That Delhi was pretty known for.
Yeah.
So how did journalism happen from College of Art? And you didn't choose beauty right away, right?
No, you know, it just, everything literally happened by accident. So I wanted to be an artist, and in first year of college, I met with this really bad accident. My brother was on the scooter and he was wearing a helmet. I was not wearing a helmet. You know, the Subrota Park red light. We turned right towards Subrota Park and this big van came and just jammed against us. I flew off, landed on a rock. My head was split open. Like literally they couldn't stitch it together because it was like halwa. Even now I have a, you know, thing here.
Really?
Yeah, I have like a few bald patches and a little whatever. And it was literally like in the movies. I had no memory of that happening. No memory. I woke up and I was like, "Main kahan hu?" You know. I had no idea. And obviously, my brother was, you know, completely traumatized. Wouldn't ride a two-wheeler for years. But something in that accident, something happened that I just lost interest in art after that. I just lost interest. So then, you know, during my summer vacation, I did copy training because that's what also I used to do. You know, I used to write. Also, I used to paint and write. So I started indulging this other side of me. You know, copywriting and all of that. One thing led to the other. And then one of my friends was in Cosmo, and then she told me that, oh, there's a opening for beauty writer. And generally, I've always been very interested in beauty. I used to love, you know, dressing my dadi up as a college girl and all sorts of things like that. So I was like, okay, wow, that sounds amazing because, you know, I love makeup and I love all of that. So I went there. Priya Ramani used to be the editor of Cosmo at that time. She gave me a copy test and, you know, that's that.
Okay. But then, you know, then there was a substantial break in your career. Like you were mentioning, you got married, you traveled all over. How was it getting back in the game? And, so, I wanted to say that when at that age, na, when we're in our 20s, you feel so FOMO na, about everything that, okay, 6-month gap ho gaya, 1 year, life is over. But you clearly came back and like, how?
Gosh, yeah, I had a huge break because, you know, I left India.
You got married pretty early.
I got married pretty early, 25, which is early, I think, by now, by today's standards. And then, well, you know, we moved to KL. There also I was writing for Harper's Bazaar and KL and Singapore and whatever. Then that whole endometriosis thing happened. And then I went through this stage where I started getting like IVF after IVF. Once you start doing that, then your entire focus is having a baby and like literally you're not interested in anything else. So I just stopped writing. I was like, okay, I just need to focus on this. I mean, I really don't know why I needed to focus on just that. But that was my mindset. I just completely lost interest in work. And of course, you're absolutely right. I felt really bad, not only because like, you know, this thing wasn't working out, but also because my career, which was like, so I used to be like this, you know, bright star and, you know, I had this future ahead of me and none of that would happen for me now because there was like a good like 4, 5, 6 years gap also in between of me getting any work or any writing. I remember I had this one, for Elle, I think I was given this one article to write. And I wrote it so badly that they had to get another writer to co-write it with me. Yeah.
During that, okay. That must have hurt bad.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my God, I don't even know how to write. My goodness. But, you know, I mean, I've had like so many, like, because I think I've had so many nice people to work with, that I got a chance with my editor, my old editor, Priya Ramani. She, you know, was okay with me freelancing for Mint.
Acha.
And it was challenging because literally, I feel like if you don't do something, you forget how to do it.
I agree.
So I remember initially when I started rewriting for Mint, I used to get feedback and it used to be written in all caps. And the number of like the entire file used to be caps because they wanted so many changes with my writing, you know. But slowly I got back into the game and, you know, lots of people gave me chances. Lots of people, you know, they were like, okay, she was good at some point. We trust her. She's easy to work with. And slowly I just kind of...
and you ended up becoming the beauty editor of 3 magazines.
That was again
that
like
is
old
top of your game at that point of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think now I'm at the top of my game.
Yeah,
but yeah,
no, I was going to come to that. Yeah, top of that game.
Really like a dream come true at that point, you know, because again, another person did a favor on me, my old editor, my second editor at Cosmo, Payal Kohli, and she gave me a job in Better Homes and Gardens magazine as deputy editor. And I was like, kuch bhi, I need to get out of the house, I need to work. And, you know, I started working. Then like, I think somebody, they just called me a headhunter that, do you want to join as deputy editor of Good Housekeeping? And I'm like, you know, that's something that I'm doing here. But just tell Mala, Vasudha is back and I want to get back into beauty writing. So a few months later, she called me and she gave me this offer, and I was over the moon that I was back in the business where I belonged and felt most comfortable.
And then you decided to give it all up and go into your own way. Is that how it happened?
Yeah, so a few years later, that's what happened. You know, I mean, there were some very difficult people at work. So and then I just felt like, you know, it's... I'm not enjoying working because for me it's really about like relations. So it was the best thing that happened actually to me because I quit. And also it was just like, what am I going to be next, right?
What did you decide to be next? You decided I'm going to be what, a beauty influencer?
So I started a blog while I was in the magazine and yeah, that's what I decided.
Okay, I'm going to do this on my own.
Yeah.
Wow, that's brave. Was it even a thing at that time?
Oh, it was a huge thing at that point.
Okay, so okay.
It was a huge thing at that point, and it was really like that that point where you know, I used to see influencers, and you know, as a journalist, you're not paid that much. As an influencer, the kind of money they make is insane. Even then, but money was never the motivator. It was just like about, you know, owning my own voice. Right? Because you work in a magazine and then every editor has their vision and you have to work with their vision. And then with being in a magazine or newspaper, things have to be topical. There has to be something new. With my blog, and also like so many people were reacting so nicely to my blog. You know, after I quit, the editor of Hindu Weekend, Rosella, she just called me out of the blue and she's like, do you want to do a column for us? And I love your blog and it has to be like that. So, you know, it just, I think you just need the guts to move out and just things work out.
So what were you blogging about?
So there were 4 pillars that I was blogging about. There was one was, you know, your makeup, skincare, then food, supplements, then there was spirituality.
Oh, and then?
Yeah. And wellness practices. If you see V-Beauty, it has all of that.
So, you know, you've carved a space, but where beauty doesn't seem superficial. In fact, I almost feel it's unfair to call you simply a beauty influencer because the platform is engaging, but there's no drama and theatrics on it. You keep it pretty, you know, you become a trusted voice. There were no, you know, you don't give things like overnight detoxes and cleanse out. So was this a conscious decision that you'll go personality?
I think it was very just spontaneous because I just always wanted to write or suggest things that I've tried myself, not because something is a trend. So if I haven't tried something or if I haven't done something or I haven't experienced something, I just didn't want to put it out.
But wellness was not a trend then.
Wellness has become huge after COVID.
After COVID, yeah.
But I think wellness has started being a trend and it all came under the same umbrella after around 2016, 2015, like pretty much around the time I quit, you know, health, wellness and beauty all started coming under the same umbrella. So yeah, you could say that I was one of the first movers who wrote about beauty and wellness together. Instead of like just keeping skincare and makeup apart and then you have your wellness. I just like, you know, blended
got
all
it together.
Yeah.
For you, how did it become more than skin deep? How did you decide, like, you know, that you've also been very open about your personal health struggles. Is that why it went parallelly?
That is exactly where it started because initially, like, you know, when I was in my 20s, I joined Cosmo, I think 21 or 22 or something like that. And that time it was all about makeup and lipstick and hair serum and all of that. And everything changed when the whole endometriosis thing happened. And that's when I started. Initially, though, I didn't even take it seriously. But then when IVF after IVF after IVF started happening and like nothing was helping, and I'm putting on weight and whatever. And it was when I actually joined yoga to sort of get peace of mind. You know, Yasin, I was like a size 14 after all my IVFs. And the doctors told me that this is your body. It is never going to change. Not that there's anything wrong with the size 14 body. I'm not saying that at all. But it's not my natural body type. But I accepted it. I was like, fine, that's okay. I just want to be healthy. And I joined yoga basically to find peace of mind. That, you know, I just want to feel relaxed. And I just want to get over all my traumas and things like that. And within a year, not only did I start getting my old body back, I started feeling much more relaxed. I used to have like this, you know, not very good skin and, you know, rosacea and whatever. All of that went away. And then I started really realizing the value of wellness practices and changing your diet and all of that. So that's where the whole shift happened.
Yeah. And yeah, you know, when there's also a lot of silence about women reclaiming their body, especially around, you know, after 40, as if aging itself is a shameful thing. Your relationship with your body has also changed, as does everybody's relationship changes. So I don't know why there is this whole thing that, you know, if a woman is over 40, so the story is over. Don't even think of your health. And the only thing you have to do is hide it under makeup. That's how our mothers and all, well, that was a kind of conversation and thinking, I think, that, you know, that even now, like women of a certain age now, if you call, there's no acceptance of the person as they are. Like the age comes first, and along with it, then these assumptions. And, you know, not being of a certain health or good health is just almost taken for granted in that space then, that, you know, this is how it will be. And I think that's why perhaps this whole rush towards all the filters and the Botox and all that is a rush which goes to. And that's not, I've never heard you talk about all these procedures on your...
No, well, you know, if I get something done, I'll always talk about it. You know, I mean, you know, sometimes when I get a laser done, everybody knows it's not like that. Actually, this is a very good topic that you've touched upon. So I feel like in India, there are two opposite sides of the spectrum, right? What people expect out of women who've already had children and are a certain age and everything, that they feel like our sexuality is not required. You know, because women's sexuality is a means to an end. You're taking care of yourself so that you can find a husband. Your husband is attractive to you. Ek baar bachche ho gaye, chhod do. You know, so it's just a means to an end. It's not like a woman should just look good for the sake of looking good. And, you know, you can see the kind of hate older women get. You know, for instance, Malaika and all these people look amazing. But the kind of comments that they get, and it's just, you know,
it's hateful, actually hateful.
It's hateful that how dare she look so amazing. She has served her purpose. She has these children. Ab kya zarurat hai? You know, there's the other end of the spectrum. And then there is the other side wherein it's like, oh, you know, you are old and you need to go and do this and you need to do that. You know what I mean? So it's like damned if you do and damned if you don't.
But that's the story of women and everything.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's interesting. You're saying like that, but I just feel like after 40 is when you actually, I feel like women blossom. After 40.
Yeah, I have to agree. Yes.
You know, and also this thing about like, you know, oh, you don't look like you're 40. Like, please tell me, how are we supposed to look when we are 40? Come on.
That's, you know, like, that's a very interesting way of putting it. Because, you know, when somebody says you don't look like what were you supposed to look like? I mean, I'm sorry that memo didn't come.
Yeah, like, you know, I mean, like, how am I supposed to look like? And people are like, oh, you don't look your age. Yes, like, but I do. I do look my age. I'm very proud to look my age. You know, what are you saying?
But you know, there's the other side also. No? Like, and in fact, I've heard you talk about it a lot also, about this self-sacrificing and woman who will not do anything for herself because as if there's this prize, and you know, the more you suffer, and that's what I like about your platform. There are all these discussions which you've moved into the space for. So there is this whole talk which you initiate a lot. Actually, you know, about women claiming their space and women being seen as this bichari and, you know, being hoping for some prize to come. That, you know, okay, I'll do this much and then I will get this.
And we all have been that woman at some point in our lives. You know, because we feel like if I do something, then so and so will change. Whereas there's nothing you can do.
That's a very
to be
empathetic way of
treated
looking
in a
at
certain way.
that, Vasudha, for you to say that we've all been there. And that
Yeah,
makes it so less
yeah.
judgmental because, we all tend to judge.
Yeah, because I
the
have
other.
sacrificed my happiness, my well-being, my this thing, just thinking that अच्छा चलो मैं ये कर दूंगी तो I will be treated better. मैं ये वो कर दूंगी तो I will be liked more.
Yeah.
And we have always, like some people like, are smarter than others and like kind of mature faster and stop doing that. And some people just keep doing it for the rest of their lives. Thankfully, we have stopped doing it after a point. But वो tendency जो होती है ना, Yasmin, I still find myself fighting against that tendency. Like when I put my foot down, there's always that slight like microsecond of like thing that
Should I?
it's ज़्यादा हो गया, like that. So there's always that second guessing because we are conditioned to put other people's happiness and comfort before ours.
Did you have to unlearn a lot of this about being palatable and being nice and shrinking to the others? And no, I'm not just talking in the personal, I think in the professional space too.
Yes. Even in something like if somebody tells me, oh, you're looking so beautiful. Oh, really? No, but my skin is looking... even accepting a compliment is so difficult for most of us. Forget about professional or something. If somebody is saying something nice to you. So one of the things that I decided long back is if somebody is going to give me a compliment, I'm going to accept it. So trying to make these small changes and, trying to make people comfortable and try to show that I'm not as successful as...
you are perceiving me to be.
Yeah.
I don't know. There is, I think that's quite ingrained. It's probably, I feel, everybody has their own journey and hopefully everyone will learn at some point of time. But it is like that, now that you will try to hide and put others first.
Yeah.
But, Vasudha, on your, you're always a vocal supporter of other women. And you and me have had great conversations and I always find you there for me. Were there any women who were there for you?
Oh yes, of course. I have such a great circle of friends. My friend Payal, my friend Abhirupa, who's from college. These two women, my mother, my gay boys. Just I've had a lot of support, and I worked in an industry where I worked primarily with women.
Yeah, you mentioned that you got chances again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All the women who gave me chances to sort of reclaim my career, which I thought would never happen. My career is finished. Like, who is like out of circulation for like 5-6 years and then comes back, right? At the age of 36, my career restarted.
Like,
and then when I got it, I was like, I'm going to milk it now.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Like, when I took not even a complete break because I continued working after getting married and having children, but I couldn't get back into the job space. I didn't have probably the guts to do that. So it's amazing that you were able to do that, and women helped you.
And women helped me. Yeah.
There are a lot of people tell me who Priya
Ramani helped me by giving me that freelance work. Mala Sekhri, I'm still like Mala. If you're watching this, I'm so thankful for you to give me that chance again. So all these women, they just supported me and just helped me like reclaim my life.
It's there. A lot of time when people say, women never help and women are the ones pulling you around. And I feel like I've also had such amazing, women, both in the professional space and in my personal life, who've just been such a huge support and given so many chances.
Yeah.
So, Vasudha, we have to come to your books now. So, you got the 3 books now, The Glow, Ritual and Sacred.
And Sacred. And 4 if you want to count the Audible book.
Audible, what's that called?
The Book of Holistic Beauty.
Okay. So what does writing give you that social media doesn't?
Writing gives me permanency. Writing gives me a chance to create a legacy. Writing is also a very solitary process, which I really enjoy. It's almost like, I shut my room, I put on some agarbatti, it's just like sort of like this sacred cave. And there I'm doing my writing. So it's a very cathartic process for me. It's a very dreamy process for me. I am a loner. Essentially, I'm a loner. I like my time alone. So it gives me that time on my own and I'm rewarded for it. So it's a very cathartic process.
So what's the process you follow? Like, how long will it take you to do a book? You'll shut yourself off and it's almost ritualistic doing this.
Yeah. It depends. It really depends. Glow I wrote in 3 months. When I got the first book deal, I was very happy for 2 days and then I was like, oh my God, now I actually have to write this book. And I was so intimidated with this project that I've got that I sat on it for 1 year till my editor was like, when am I getting this book from you? And I wrote it in 3 months.
Huh.
Ritual took longer because COVID came in between. It
Yeah.
was supposed to be a 2020 launch and COVID came in between. And I told my editor, I was like, listen, I'm so isolated. All I want to do is my social media. And that's when I think my social media also really took off, because it really gave me a lot of pleasure to be in touch with my girls and like interact. And that is one way to interact with other people. So Ritual took much longer. It took about 2 years to write, because it was just, those times were different. And Sacred, I don't know, it just wrote itself. I don't even realize how quickly I did it. And my mother's like, when did you write this book? I didn't even realize when you're writing this book.
So was it always meant to a trilogy? I mean, what does Sacred have which Glow and Ritual didn't have?
Sacred, I feel like most authentic to me. You know, it's something. Sacred and Glow and Ritual are very populist books that I've written for other people. Sacred is something that I've written for myself. I just wanted to revive this whole thing of divine botany. You know, Yasmin, we have like so much of like, you know, divinity around plants and trees and everything. And you look around you and these are the divine beings that are just being cut and decimated and whatever. And I have an internal visceral reaction when these things happen. So, I mean, of course, it has all the populist things about like rituals and recipes, and it's very packed like that. It's a very rich book, but it's also trying to remind people of the relationship that we used to have with plants and how we need to start looking at plants as sacred beings. And I feel like 10 different people need to write on this subject, because that is required at this point.
That's very generous of you also, actually.
No, I mean, I just feel like, come on, we just need to start looking at plants as divine beings. Now we know that plants communicate with each other. We know that plants can feel things. We need to write something which is, you know, which is deep. And there's a lot of storytelling there. There's a lot of history of these plants. And there's a lot of, you know, there were so many wow things that opened up my mind, you know, Yasmin. So I'm very excited about this book.
And you also got the perfect person to write the foreword for you people, Baba.
Yes.
I mean, you know, he's doing such amazing work in this stream, and such an honest, genuine person. So when you told me that he's written the foreword, I was like, and you're very conscious that you wanted somebody very solid, so to say, to write. You didn't go for the easier way of getting a, you know, Bollywood name. I mean, he is a celebrity.
He is a celebrity in this industry.
Yeah.
So Bollywood name. So for my first book, I went with Masaba to write my foreword, and I just want somebody who has a lot of depth in them. And Masaba has had those skin troubles, and she's turned into this goddess right now. So I wanted someone like her to write about glow, not somebody who's born beautiful, has always been pretty and whatever, you know.
Yeah, that's
so she wrote it, and she wrote such a beautiful foreword. The Ritual, I just couldn't find anyone who would, you know, I don't know. I mean, I just didn't connect. Not find. There are lots of people I couldn't connect with anyone. And for Sacred had to be somebody who's doing something with plants, and who better than People Baba? Because the thing with him is there's so many environmentalists, right? But he's very rare because he's so grounded.
He's very grounded,
approachable, and such a sweetheart, and so generous with his knowledge. So I was very clear. I think he's going to write my foreword.
He's been on the podcast, you know, and I was by his basic. How do I say, like, I don't want to say basic knowledge, I just want to say like common sense.
Yeah.
He just, you know, he was talking so much common sense about, you know, what we are doing with the environment and how it is small changes.
Yeah.
So have you looked at any Delhi trees and Delhi biologies in the book?
Well, it's not Delhi specific, because
it's not Delhi centric.
It's a national, but you know, I mean, I can't help but it be Delhi specific, right? Because that's what is around us. But yeah, I mean, there are, you know, trees from like, you know, Chinar and all these, you know, they are also sacred trees in Kashmir. And, you know, Chinar is dwindling. Now they're only like, it's only in thousands. And earlier it used to be in lakhs. So, and Deodar, you know, which is where like Shiva and Parvati dance in the forests and, you know, whatever. And all these trees are dwindling. So there is something with the Himalayan mountains. There's something from the south. There's something for, you know, one of the, so many interesting factoids came up, you know, Yasmin, when I was writing this book. Do you know, like, coconuts are like more than 1 million years old? You know, it's been around for, you know, millions
I wasn't
of years.
aware of that.
Even I wasn't aware of that. You know, because there has been evidence that, you know, I mean, at different size, but they were around even then. And then there are plants that are phytoremediators, meaning that they clean the soil, like a hemp tree is very good at like cleaning the soil. It cleans the soil of fertilizers and whatever. There's another tree that is really good for war zones because it, you know, detoxifies the soil of TNT. So it was just like, my goodness, you know, you cannot create any AI or any machine to do things that plants can do while controlling climate and while maintaining temperature.
Tell me, so was it the Sacred is a book, is an awareness spreading kind of a book, or is it there's a call to action? Like, is
It's
the
a
what
call
you
to
expect?
act. First of all, it's a useful book. It's a book that you want
Hmm.
with you because there's a lot of helpful things. Because for whatever I write, there has to be something in it for the audience. It can't be self-indulgent, right? So it's very useful to keep that sort of a book because there's so many recipes, there's so much of knowledge, and how to. It's just there's lots of things packed in there. Secondly, while you are indulging yourself, because then it kind of gets ingrained in your subconscious, right? It's a call to action as well. But first and foremost, it's useful to the reader. It's got beautiful stories. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of rituals and recipes, and fully loaded book, as all my books are.
So are there going to be more books after this?
Well, there is one book that I'm supposed to write for Penguin, but honestly, at this point, actually 2 more books.
So you had a 5-book deal?
Well, we are in conversations for 2 more books, and but right now, I'm just a little written out.
Yeah, you'll get back into it.
Yeah, of course, it's my safe space. Yeah,
very, 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 very. So,
yeah.
In fact, through your books and your Instagram, what I find, there's something very approachable. You're not kind of selling this aspirational wellness and 5-star retreat. There's something very, how do I put it? Accessible healing is what it seems like, that it doesn't have to be a 5-star retreat or this complex, 4-day water detox. It could be as simple as just sitting with the Zira water and breathing.
Yeah.
And that's something you kind of keep putting into that space and show it through your lifestyle. So, do you ever feel like, bahut ho gaya, bas, I don't want to do this. I want to go and eat some junk food now?
Oh, of course. All the time.
All the time.
Yeah. I eat a lot of junk food, but not, it's
on
not
a daily
part of
basis.
my lifestyle. And everybody knows that it's not like I'm super healthy. And and the reason I do all this sort of accessible wellness is because that's who I am. Again, my Instagram.
And it's a process, no? It's not like a destination you arrive at and you're there.
Char din kar liya, and then you're coming back and you're eating like,
Yeah.
Chole bhature.
I
love chole bhature.
Yeah. I eat all the
Chole bhature with lassi and then a nap.
Yeah.
It's the best neend ki goli.
Yeah, actually, we should try that. Raat mein, since we're talking about not being able to sleep, that's another.
Oh, yeah. I was just speaking to Nisha about it actually, and what all of us are going through that, right?
Really?
Yeah. Not being able to sleep.
At least in this, in some spaces, and I think with more women, we were talking about that today, as women past a certain age are seen, then the problems will also be seen. Otherwise, where were these things in discussion that you can't sleep, and we're like, sitting and talking about that you can't sleep, or you can't, you're going through certain changes.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's something good only, I hope. I
feel like a lot of women, they don't like to talk about their age. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So when you're not talking about your age,
then you can't talk about the age related.
You can't talk about the things what perimenopausal and menopausal because you cannot,
Yeah, you're not even there.
You're not even there because how are you going to talk about it? You're just always trying to hide.
Yeah.
But I think there's so much freedom in being open, and obviously, not like I'm open to a degree. But I'm also a very private person, as you know.
Yeah.
There's lots of things that people don't know about me because not everybody has the luxury of, and I think that's true for all of us. But I feel like this whole sharing thing has only started now because women are open about their age. There are so many people who are celebrating their 50th birthday. Yeah.
And I think that goes with the kind of being more in a professional field, so you're seen more, and you're successful at that age more, and then that's when you will, if you talk about your issues, and people will hopefully listen to those. So a friend of mine had once said to me that if men were going through perimenopause or menopause, they would have invented some cure for it, like long bag, because it's a women's only issue. It's never.
That goes for all women's diseases, endometriosis, PCOS. They're not as researched as maybe like a diabetes or heart this thing or.
And you talk a lot about all that. You built quite a strong community. Is that's one of the.
Yes. Yeah.
And I see them calling you Gigi and.
That's all Varun. When we were in Bazaar, he called me Gigi, and then everyone at Fashion Week started calling me Gigi, and then just like stuck as sort of
Gigi
a name.
means elder sister.
Elder sister.
In
yeah.
which language?
I think North Indian language.
North Indian.
Maybe Gigi. That's what he calls me. I guess in the north here.
See, you like you said, you're open about your private space and yet not accessible to everyone in that sense. But that I feel that for so long, women were the private space was kind of thrown at women as a problem, that she has children or she's married, so therefore she's not going to be able to do this or that.
Yeah.
And which I feel also the personal and professional are integrated. It's true.
Yeah.
You really cannot separate. And I think now women are just taking more ownership, because anyway for so many years it was thrown to them. Now they take ownership also of that. Men are not able to do that. And whether it doesn't affect their personal, doesn't affect their professional life or whatever. But you've now come to a place where you say that being on your own is a privilege, and that's quite a radical idea in a society where solitude is seen as some kind of failure. How did you arrive at this clarity? That I heard you say that, and I was like, I really like that line. Like, it's a privilege that I'm.
I've always been a loner, Yasmin. I've always really enjoyed my own company.
Yeah, but that's one thing, but to accept, and
it's very difficult for me also to accept, and it's only now that I've fully accepted it, because you're so conditioned by society.
That's exactly that that it should be in a certain way.
A woman has to be with someone and whatever. So I don't know, this entire conversation reminds me of this video that I saw of Reese Witherspoon, and she was like, all these movies where something happens and the woman turns to the man and she's like, what do we do? And she's like, in real life, have you ever seen a woman turning to a man and asking him, what do we do? It never happens. It's a woman always decides.
And we'll find the solution actually.
We'll find the solution to everything. So I'm very like, and that's what I was discussing with my mom also today in the morning. And I was like, I pamper myself, I take care of myself, I treat myself very nicely. Unless I can find a man to do all those things, which is a tall order. It's a tall order. I mean, I don't want to sound jaded, but the thing is that women get married or women get into a relationship thinking that I will be taken care of, because that is what the society tells you. But what actually happens is they are taking care of him, his mozas, his jutas, his kapde, his mother, his job, free therapy, planning holidays, everything you're doing. And I know most women are doing this. So, I mean, it's not a decision that I've made out of experiences. Yasmin, I've always been like this. I told my parents, I never want to get married, never want to get married, never want to get married. But my parents, nahi. At that time, in the 2000s, if you're unmarried when you're 22, that used to be the right age to get married, right? So they were like, nahi, karni hai. Anyway, I was the first one to get married. But now that I'm out, and beach me also my parents were like, okay, we are looking for a boy for you. I was like, no. I was like,
because that's also the accepted way. Because we are fed one version of what a successful or happy life looks like. So it's not just married, it's also married and do bacche. And that's the model. But there can be so many alternate ways of living and thriving. And I kind of find Gen Z, more clear about that. I find it very interesting about them. That that's I can't understand a lot of the Gen Z culture, but this I really appreciate, and I'm like this so clear that there are so many ways of thriving and being, and it's true.
Yeah, well, they're also very young. Let's wait for them to like go a little older. But what I love about Gen Z is that they're very open-minded. All the things that we faced in our life when we were growing up, ki hamari reputation na kharab ho jaye, kahin hamari ye na ho jaye. These are the things that hopefully these kids don't need to worry about, because they're much more open about, like, I hope that's the case, and that's not a projection that we are seeing, that they are more accepting of different skin colors. They're more accepting of sizes. We were fat shamed like crazy, right? I mean, it used to really be like a thing when we were young, right?
And color shamed.
Skin shamed.
If
you had something on your hair, ye kya hai, so it was, we lived in a very different age, and now if somebody does that, then that person will be looked down upon, which is what I love about this new generation.
I used to, for me, it was very, when I was in school, it was like very thin. And I thought there was something wrong with Nana. Then after 10 years down the line, people were running after that, being that thin. And so, you had to be this one image which everybody and you know the other thing is skin color, like you know you go out and you get even your tan and it's like completely
and your mother will be like, "अच्छा चलो ये लगाओ मुंह पे, वो लगाओ tan निकालने के
it's
लिए."
not just mother. I think it's even now, honestly, and one of the first things people will say when they meet you've lost this, or you know, nobody tells you, looks at you and says, "Oh, you're looking so happy, or you're looking so relaxed," or you know, like,
"Oh my God,
like,
looking so good, you've lost so much of weight."
Yeah, you've lost weight. You've lost weight. Is not the first. So I guess all of us have a lot of growing up and maturing to do in that
and
sense.
there's so much to learn from the younger generations, honestly. Like, I love hanging out with younger people because, you know, first of all, they give me so many ideas from the social media. And then it's just like, you know, a different perspective. And, you know, it's nice to talk to people who are, you know, so open-minded.
Yeah. But, you know, talking of younger people, we've spoken about this earlier, but you feel like a late bloomer. And
I am certainly a late bloomer.
Yes, so am I.
You know, I'm certainly a late bloomer. I mean, it wasn't like I was, you know, definitely had the best skin or had the best hair or whatever. No.
So what's been the gift of arriving late by conventional standards?
I think that I haven't peaked yet. That's the best gift. That there's so much more to do. There's so many other places to go. There's so many discoveries to be made. You know, I feel like there's something to be said about being late bloomers. And, you know, and that's the problem in today's society, right? 20 under 20, 30 under, you know, under 30 and whatever. And it just puts so much pressure on the younger generation that if I don't achieve something in my 20s, then I'm nobody. But the thing is, I feel like there's so much beauty to achieving something later, much later in your life than earlier. Because, you know, first of all, it makes you a little bit more grounded as a person. You understand life and you understand struggles. It makes you more compassionate. Secondly, it makes you value what you have in your life. And thirdly, it's just like, there's so much magic to bloom late, right? Because like your best years are still, like, for me, I'm very confident that my best years are still to come.
That's really wonderful. You know, I mean, since you're talking about this conversation about women and everybody putting this pressure on you, one is, you know, that it's old, and you hear, you're like, my best years are still to come. You really must be frightening a lot of people.
I think so. I think so,
I think that's why in the earlier, this thing they used to call happy women witches and all.
No, I'm fully a witch. No, really, Yasmin, I do feel I'm fully a witch. Like, you know, I mean, I think about something and it happens.
Really? You manifest? Do you believe in that?
No, I don't manifest. So that's something that I don't do. Because I just feel like all the things that I've wanted, inshallah, I've got them in my life. But then those things were not very good for me. So you can want something, but do you know that it's actually good for you or how it'll turn out for you? And also, how do you know that life itself doesn't have a better gift?
So how do you play that?
So, I mean, even when I pray, I never pray for, meri life mein ye ho jaye, kash ki wo ho jaye. I've stopped making wishes. I don't wish for anything. The moment I wake up in the morning, I'm like, thank you, God. Thank you for my good health. Thank you for my parents' good health. Thank you for keeping my family protected. Thank you for keeping me safe and sound. That's it. I don't wish for anything because bin mange, universe is so beautiful. It gives you things. It'll give you a lot of shit also, but that will lead to some sort of a beautiful treasure is what I feel.
It's true actually, but they have to really walk through a lot of slime to kind of know that also.
And there has been enough slime. Fair amount.
What is it called? Kiss many frogs before you find.
Frogs.
No, before you realize you're the princess yourself.
The only person you need to kiss yourself is you.
This is not going to sound very right.
But there's this whole movement of women who just don't want to date.
There is.
Young women, they just don't want to date. I don't know where that comes in. Like personally, Yasmin, I still believe in love. I'm a big romantic, and I just find life very romantic. I mean, just on a daily basis. So I don't believe there are nice people out there. There are nice guys and whatever. And I don't want to have this whole sort of a very jaded perspective. But also, I mean, it's not like I'm looking out or whatever.
So what is this movement? I don't know, women who don't want to date.
Young women, they just don't want to date men anymore. They're just tired of dating men. I think now this whole dating culture has started, all the dating apps and whatever, and people are lying on their profiles. Height के बारे में तो सब लोग झूठ बोलते हैं.
But But I haven't understood how this dating, I know everybody is on it, but I haven't really figured out how does this work. It झूठ बोल रहे हैं, photograph भी झूठ है.
हाँ हाँ,
फिर how are you
50 filter
connecting?
डाल देंगे अपने photo पे. It's like,
हाँ.
okay, who's this person? Oh, you?
Oh my God.
And everybody's like 6 feet tall, 6 feet tall, 6 feet. And then you meet them in person, it's like, you're not even as tall as me, dude. What the hell?
I'm sure they're like not just one, two, no, they're like some 20.
Several dating
apps. I don't know. I haven't understood how this whole thing. But I just kind of feel it seems a lot unsafe to me.
I agree. I completely agree. And I feel like that is why women are not dating. And also, I just feel like there's this whole, I don't know, man. I just feel like, the whole love, loyalty. Or maybe those are not the expectations we need to have from humans. I don't know.
Love and no, come on. We have to have that.
Love, yes. Loyalty. Should we expect people to be loyal?
Why not?
Yeah, but are they capable of it?
Why not?
Yeah, actually.
I mean, see,
I'm a loyal person.
Yeah, I was going to say that. So I have a very simple take on this. Is that, what is that? Do unto others as you would expect them to do to you. I am a loyal person. And so, I would expect loyalty.
But I think that's one of the things that's making young women these days very jaded. Because, there's so many options.
Yeah, that's true. But that might be a good thing only then.
For men. Women ke liye to, I think that's what the research shows, right? Like most of the women go for the top 1% of men on dating apps.
Okay.
How? So, and that top 1% of men have so many options.
Okay, let's get back to Delhi before we wrap up.
Yeah.
A Delhi smell that instantly grounds you.
Satparni trees. That smell in, around Diwali time when the Satparni trees are in bloom.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
Once I was trying to find out the name of this tree and I couldn't pronounce it. This was during my episode with People Power. Satparni, I couldn't get it finally. Okay, one book that shaped your worldview.
One book that shaped my worldview. Oh God.
Okay, 2 books. Lots of books.
I mean, I keep reading so many books. One book that is memorable and incredibly sad, I don't know, but it kind of also, I also sort of connected with it, is this book called A Little Life. It's about this man and different various trauma and struggles and whatever, and how he can't have sex. He just finds the whole act very, disgusting and whatever. And I could see his point of view. And I could relate to his point of view because sometimes, like nowadays, there's so much of loveless sex that's going on, and I find that I'm at a stage where I find that very disgusting. So I could relate to that book. Now, it's not something that shaped my worldview or whatever, and I've read so many books, but this is one book that I remember very clearly and something I understood how that guy felt.
Okay, one beauty practice you'll never give up.
Oh, face massage. I'll never give up.
I've learned that from you.
Yeah. And now I started using devices also, so it's great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And that, you'd count that among the top thing to do.
Yeah. I like doing my face massages also because it's so relaxing and, it's just such a lovely practice and lymphatic drainage bhi ho jati because I start massaging my face from here up.
From here?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, all the lymph nodes are here and so.
And do that every day?
Not every day. 2-3 times a week. 3 times though, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, a mantra that always brings you back to yourself.
A mantra as in like a...
your go-to line.
Every day, in every way, I get better and better. That's my affirmation.
Yeah. Every day, in every way, I get better and better.
Yeah. So again, you're not wishing for anything. It's just like a...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Delhi to you is?
Romance, love. Delhi, unlike any other city in the country, has this very sort of a leisurely quality about it. दोपहर भी खूबसूरत होती है, सुबह भी खूबसूरत है, शाम तो होती ही है, and then it's a city where you can, even if you're a complete hustler, you can still meet your friends for lunch, without feeling uncomfortable. Like Bombay, you can't even dream of meeting anyone for lunch. So the picnics, the culture, there's just so much of romance and leisure in the city. Yeah.
Where should you go for skin?
So where do I go for skin? I have two places. I like my dermatologist to be very simple and inexpensive, and also like, you know, very relatable in the sense if I tell that doc I don't want to spend this kind of money, they should be okay with it. So one, of course, my Dr. Meghna Gupta in Hauskhas is amazing, and then there is, you know, somebody I've also discovered in Gurgaon called Dr. Sumbul Khan in Gurgaon. She is wonderful, and everything is like, you know, so cost effective. Like a laser and a peel will cost you like 2,000-3,000 rupees, which is wonderful.
I have to take the number from you. Okay, hair.
Hair, I used to love Suparna Trikha. You know, I wish she opens a parlor again. And that used to be my
shut it down in
favorite.
Nizamuddin, na?
She shut it down during COVID. And I really hope she opens it again, because that used to be my favorite place for, like, you know, the hair packs.
The
and,
banana
you know,
hair pack.
Banana bouncer, exactly. So amazing. Cleopatra pedicures and whatever. But hair cuts, I like to go to Oberoi in Gurgaon. I've been going to Laurent, who works there right now, for I think since 2006, 2007, and he's the only person who cuts my hair in Delhi, and he's fantastic with curly, wavy hair. So yeah, these are my favorite spots.
You don't recommend any of these fancy spa kind of places? What's the...
I just have like a, you know,
Basic.
basic, like, you know, basic woman comes over to my house to give me massage. Or, you know, I like to go to Crown Plaza in Gurgaon. I have a membership there. And they have a really nice spa area, which is usually empty. And they are the one of the few places in Gurgaon that also has a sauna. So I love sauna in winter. And there's a girl called Grace who gives me massages, fantastic massages. But actually what I love in Delhi most is shopping for fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
You know,
So where do you shop for fruits? I know Rajdhani Nursery is your...
Rajdhani Nursery is very nice in Jorbagh for amazing this thing. Then there's this one nursery on Gurgaon Faridabad Road called Green something. That's a wholesale nursery for amazing plants. Then of course, like, you know, if I have to take any meats and things like that, then it's always Khan Market. There's one Sardarji shop called the Meat Shop. That's where I go to. For fish, the best place in Delhi is called Gujarat Fisheries. In Gol Market. It's amazing.
Okay.
Okay. Then if I want something exotic in terms of like wellness, like blackstrap molasses or something like, you know, very health foody, then I go to Lucky Stores in INA. So, you know, they're the twin brothers, look exactly the same, and the Lucky Stores is on both sides of the lane, and you look, it's like, oh my God.
I've got very confused over there.
Like, oh my God, both are like, you know, so those twin brothers. So Lucky Store is amazing. If you want some exotic, like, you know, maca chahiye tumhe ya aisa chahiye, something, those kind of supplements, that's great. Of course, Yusuf Sarai for anything Ayurvedic.
I don't know that.
Yeah, Yusuf Sarai is great for, you know, your Ayurvedic supplements and whatever. There are loads of Ayurvedic shops there. Then, of course, in INA, I love my evergreen vegetables right at the end for sabzi shopping and all of that. And right opposite Evergreen, that sabzi wala is a place where you get the best spices in Delhi. The best spices. It's right towards the end where you have all the chicken. You have evergreen evergreen vegetables here, and right opposite is a spice shop. You get the most exotic masalas there. You even get like the haldi, which is gila.
Oh, acha, the fresh haldi.
The fresh
Listen,
haldi. Hing, which is wet.
Oh.
Yeah, it's that fresh.
Okay, listen, talking about all these things, tell me some of the simplest things you don't know of which can really help in being a better version of yourself, healthier
like in terms of skincare?
Yeah, skincare, yeah.
So, you know, I've spoken a lot about it on Instagram about skincare. So, you know what my basics are. My basics are a good moisturizer, a good retinol at night, face massages. And one thing that I've really like started doing a lot of since a couple of years is using devices. You know, because I take these packages and then I get so lazy, the package just goes to waste.
So what kind of device?
So, you know, an LED mask. So what I do is I do something special for myself. Also because I work from home. So I mask laga karke baith jati hu, kaam karti hu and whatever. I do something nice for myself every day, and it literally just takes like 15-20 minutes. So either I'll go over my face with a microcurrent device, or I'll give myself a manual face massage, or I'll do a DIY face mask, or I'll put an LED mask. So every day I do one thing like this for myself. You know, rotate. So if today what did I do? Today I used a microcurrent device.
Achha,
so and tomorrow maybe I'll do an LED mask. Day after I'll do like a normal face massage. Then I will do like a, you know, a Kasturi Manjal wala face mask. So every day
Huh.
I like to, over and above my skincare, I
Huh.
like to do one special thing for myself.
Yeah.
And I feel like that really takes your skin to the next level.
Yeah?
Yeah. I beyond your skincare, and it's like giving yourself a facial at home almost on a daily basis. So I feel like that is something that I've started doing. It's really made a huge difference in my skin.
And what about the fancy stuff you were just mentioning, like black molasses, and what are these to do things to have?
I used to be, addicted to these kind of superfoods
Huh.
or whatever.
Huh.
But now I don't take so much of that. Now I'm more into, eating fresh, eating healthy, eating a variety of fruits and vegetables. If I see a vegetable that I've never seen, I'll pick that up and I'll eat it. Because the more variety of like fruits and vegetables you eat, the more diverse your gut bacteria is. Now we know everything is our gut, from our mental health to our sleep and whatever. So right now I'm really on this gut mission where I want to eat like more variety of like, plant-based foods to have like a wider range of bacteria in my gut. So that's my main wellness practice these days. And of course, sleep.
Yeah,
Of course, sleep, which I
You're also
suffer.
facing sleep issues, and what are you doing about it?
So I take this supplement, which is a CBD and THC supplement, which you get via, a prescription. Because, at this stage, perimenopause and menopause, like I'm literally in the middle of all of this. It just, sometimes I'm just lying awake the entire night. Pehle to aisa tha that if I'm awake for a few hours,
then it'll stay.
so at some point I'll go to sleep. But now I know if I'm awake for a few hours,
Then not going. There's no
I'm
sleep
not going
coming.
to sleep. I'll wake up in the morning, and at least earlier, if I'd wake up in the morning, immediately I can have breakfast and then I can sleep for 2-3 hours. No. Ab waisa nahi hota. Then I'll sleep again in the evening. So I really feel like sleep is one of those most important things, and I've really started prioritizing it for myself. Really started doing that.
So, but I don't know, this sometimes seems a bit out of control at this point.
Yeah. It does seem out of control, which is why I'm like, if I whether have to take melatonin or CBD or whatever, some sort of sleep supplement, I just really need to take it because, your cognitive health,
That goes
your memory gets affected. Forget about your looks. Forget about that for a moment.
Yeah. It's about how you feel.
It's about how you feel, and it's about how your brain functions. Your brain stops functioning properly, and your memory starts fading. If you don't get good sleep regularly, your brain starts aging, which is like, now, of course, taking care of myself, my skin, my workout, all of that physically has become second nature to me. I don't even need to worry about it. But one of the things that I've actually started thinking very seriously about, and that's going to be the next phase of my wellness, is memory, retaining memory. Because after COVID, especially, doesn't it happen with you?
I used to attribute it to thyroid.
Okay.
Frankly, I don't know if it's COVID or thyroid, because it's a joke I make with myself. I'm like, if I'm standing and forget a name, and I'm like, oh, because I've got thyroid, so perhaps my memory is a little bad because of that.
And also because I like my solitude, and I do plan to be on my own or whatever. I just feel like I just want to keep my brain very sharp.
Yeah. So what are you doing about that?
First of all, prioritizing sleep and sleeping well every night. Every night, even if it means that I need to take some CBD and THC to sleep.
What is THC?
It's a molecule of this thing, but THC beyond a certain percentage is not allowed in India. And, you'll only get a prescription if you genuinely have a problem. Like I do have a problem of insomnia, so I did get that prescription. So that's very effective again in pain also.
Okay.
So it really helps control, pain. So, and I feel like the best way to boost your brain health and memory is by getting enough sleep. The lesser you sleep, the more your brain will deteriorate. You can take all the Brahmi and the this and that and all of that. If you're not going to sleep, your brain will never get refreshed. And the second thing is meditation, which I need to get back to. Although, meditation, I will say, is not for everyone, because so many people are anxious and depressed and whatever. वो लोग बैठते हैं meditation में, तो, they get into the mind becomes very heavy because they're thinking so many things. But studies have shown that meditation actually preserves the length of your telomeres. Telomeres are these finger-like extensions on your DNA, right? And telomere length is indicative of, the aging process. तो जितने घटते जाते हैं telomeres in length, उतना आप age करते हो. So meditation preserves the length of these telomeres.
And that can be any kind of meditation.
any kind of meditation. You know, I interviewed this somnologist many years back, and he told me, you know, even 15 minutes of meditation can reduce your need for sleep by a few hours. And even in that 15 minutes, you're actually genuinely only meditating for like a minute or two.
Yeah, you don't reach that point constantly to maintain.
वो हो ही नहीं सकता. Because we're living in a hyper-stimulated atmosphere, right? That's why they used to say in earlier years that एक phase हुआ करती थी गृहस्थ और उसके बाद ब्रह्मचार्य.
Correct.
Right? And now we are
trying to do it in the same.
It's not even like we have गृहस्थ, we have गृहस्थ and we have like बाहर का भी कुछ हो रहा है, यहाँ का भी कुछ हो रहा है, फोन भी हमारा बज रहा है, तो वो हो ही नहीं सकता. But the thing is that meditation preserves grey matter. In fact, it makes grey matter grow. It preserves the length of your telomere. It reduces the need for sleep. So that is something also meditative practice that I need to sort of get back to now. Especially since you know about my next phase of my life is going to be. So I feel like I don't want to be one of those stressed entrepreneurs where I'm just working and ruining my health. So these are so definitely prioritizing brain health right now. And this is the right age to do it, you know, Yasmin.
Yeah. You like being alone and you're going to be alone. And I kind of find it very empowering to hear somebody say that. I remember when my children were going to start moving and everybody would tell me that now your children are going to go. It's like this fear-inducing thing which is, and ultimately everybody has at some point of time to be alone. So it's quite empowering for me to hear you.
Well, you know, I'm comfortable with this thought now, but I would be lying if I said that no, I always felt like this. There was like
there's always a process, right?
Especially when I was unwell beach mein for those 3-4 years, abhi 2016 to 2018. I really went through a couple of years of insecurity that, you know, I don't have any kids, who will take care of me if I'm in the hospital or whatever. So I did go through that phase and I worked through it.
How did you work through it?
First of all, though, you know, it just, you know, I spoke to a lot of people, you know, had a little bit of therapy, all of that, wo sab kiya maine. I worked on it. When health started becoming better, the fears sort of subsided. You know,
no, but that's the thing to be said about seeking a little, taking help. Na? One is, I think that's also something which people are becoming open about now. Very now. I mean, even if I were to say I go for therapy, most people would look at me and say that, you know, of another
But you're so balanced, you don't need it.
No, you don't need it, or you're seen as a sign of weakness, right? That, in fact, I look at it as on the other way around. It is a sign of strength that you acknowledge there's a thing and you are taking charge of.
And you know, have to, because you know, ultimately, how much can you tell your parents also? Sometimes it's really nice to speak to a person and who gives you a third person's perspective, who's not attached to that situation and can logically explain things to you. Also, I've tried a few therapists. Some of them didn't even work for me. So
I believe there's also this thing that you need shop for your therapy.
You need to find the right therapist, because sometimes it's just like, you know, you're just throwing a ball against the wall and you know there's no reaction and you just feel like, yahan pe I've opened my heart up and the other person like, I understand. You know, so I found the right therapist and you know I worked through that, and I feel like it's better to be like this. You know, a lot of people, they tell me that, oh, you know, you're on your own, you should put yourself out there. And I hate it. I just hate it when people speak like this. This just sounds so, you know, I don't need to put myself out anywhere. I think I'm putting myself out a bit too much, if you ask me.
No, that's enough, I think.
And
your light will shine through anyway.
And life is already shining. Touch wood,
touch wood. But thank you, Vasudha. You and me, we could go on talking and for, you know, forever and ever.
Absolutely.
But I have to get you back another time. There's so much more that we can talk about and kind of unravel more things and on personal and professional notes. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Yasmin, for having me. This is amazing.
Yeah, I love this.
Yeah, me too.